Let's talk to Dr. Charles Levinson, GP, Chief Executive of Dr. Call, because the ONS, that's the Office for National Statistics, monthly mortality analysis was published for June 2023, and it revealed that more people are dying this year than at the same point in 2022 and 2021. So let's find out why. Charles, very good morning to you.
Mike, good morning.
Thank you for joining us. I saw this yesterday on your Twitter feed and I thought how fascinating it was. So tell us what you think is going on here.
So throughout the pandemic, those of us actually practicing medicine on the ground, which Dr. Call clearly does, we were aware that there were knock-on effects from lockdown, which there were people who weren't getting medical attention when they should, and we were seeing people presenting much later or with much more advanced sort of stages of illness than we were used to seeing. And we were seeing mental health problems because people weren't getting out and they were frightened. But of course, it takes a long time for that to feed into death figures because and so we weren't alone. I mean, other people working in healthcare were speaking out about it and saying that there is a problem that we are seeing, but we haven't yet got the figures to prove it. But we can see it is on the ground. We can see it's a problem, and it is now, I'm afraid to say, coming to light that there were huge numbers of people being missed for their diabetes diagnosis, for their heart problem checks, for cancer. And there were mental health problems that weren't being addressed, and it is all, I'm afraid, all coming home to roost now.
Yes. So from what you're seeing, these are people who are dying in 2023 who may have not died had they been seen in some way, shape or form in the previous 2 years, or if their long-term illnesses had been detected earlier.
Well, I mean, regardless of the... So if you are sort of running a medical organisation and you're sort of on the ground there, you get a feel for what you think is going on. Yeah. And that is the feel that we had all along. But regardless of any sort of subjective judgment like that, I think I would challenge you or anyone to come up with another explanation of why now we are getting all these excess deaths. And in fact, they are now, as you say, they have overtaken the last couple of years. And in fact, in the younger age group, in the 15 to 44 age group, they have overtaken even the 2020 height of pandemic year. So it is very significant.
Yes, no, I think so. And I mean, is there any indication perhaps that it's rising or falling? The fact that it's bigger is obviously one important aspect of it, but over the months that you're looking at from, say, January to June, does it look as if it's getting bigger or is it reducing?
Well, it is straight line, it is rising, straight line increasing, and I mean, it will at some point peak, but I think the important message about it is that it is, there will be another pandemic. I think we have to accept that the experts have been sort of saying that there would be a pandemic for years, and it was a matter of when, not if. And in fact, it was always thought there'd be a flu pandemic next, and we didn't get one. We got a COVID pandemic, but that doesn't do anything to reduce the chances of us then later on getting a flu pandemic. So at some point there will be another pandemic, and when there is, the important thing is that these lessons are learned and that it is that we go into it sensibly rather than it's sort of in a panic.
So is the conclusion here that more people are dying this year than died when COVID was killing people?
Yes.
That's quite an extraordinary statement, though, isn't it?
Overall, it is for 21 and 22, and for the younger age group, it is for all the years, including 2020. Yeah, no, it is an extraordinary one. And during the pandemic, one of the things that a number of us were saying was that we actually thought it was quite possible that the effects of lockdown might end up killing more people than COVID. I mean, that was a sort of line that one heard being bandied about, but it sounded rather extreme, and people didn't take it very seriously. But it is what we are seeing.
Yes. And these are official statistics, so there's no doubt about the numbers at all.
No, and because so where you get 1 month out, of odd figures. You wonder if there's been some event that's happened in that month that skewed the figures, but these are persistent. So I think they stand up to any sort of scrutiny of statistical scrutiny. But I think what we need to do is I think there were various mistakes, but one of the big mistakes was there was a huge amount of panic about COVID and a huge amount of misinformation put out without wishing to put too sort of fine a point on it by the government.
I think that's absolutely right. I think there was no question, and they've even admitted it now, that an awful lot of what was said they shouldn't have said.
But the result of that is, one of the results was the figures we're now seeing. But the other effect of it clearly was a loss of confidence by people in the authorities. And if the public start to lose faith in the Department of Health, then that will just make things much more difficult going forward, because it means one thing is that it means that when we do get another pandemic, it will be much more difficult for them to get people to do what they want them to do. Hopefully next time they want to do slightly more sensible things, but to get them to do what they want them to do. And secondly, when people lose trust in the authorities, that leaves a vacuum into which step conspiracy theorists. So it needs to be handled better next time.
Yeah, I think that's probably the understatement of the year, but well said. Charles, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Charles Levinson there, with the absolute truth that is now incontrovertible. Let us take a moment to take it in, that more people are dying in 2023 than died during the COVID epidemic, when COVID was supposedly killing more people than anything else, when everyone had to be locked down, when schools had to be closed, when hospitals had to turn people away if they didn't have COVID, just so that they could only treat people with COVID. And so there we are. Those are the official statistics from the Office for National Statistics, so there can be no doubting it. There's no need to read any more into it. There's no need to suggest that there's something else that's killing people. It's the lockdown that ended up killing people. And you might remember that in the lockdown, there were those of us here at Talk TV who said that that would happen. And once again, we've been proved correct. How unsurprising.